In today's program, we're going to be chatting with Kendall Kendrick. Now, Kendall is a mum to 4 girls. She's also a nutritional therapy practitioner, a voice actor, motivational speaker, and a host to the Born Primal Show. What many don't realise is that over the years, Kendall has had to face quite a lot of health challenges. And during our chat, she reveals to us how she has used paleo to help her manage things like adrenal fatigue, asthma, and more. We also take a step outside the realm of food and look at how sleeping better can make so many improvements on your life, and also at why sex is probably one of the most important parts of a paleo lifestyle. So let's join Alan and Kendall now and find out more. Good morning, Kendall, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo Show.
Thank you for having me.
Actually, we got your name from Dr. Shauna Young.
She is so fantastic. I love
Dr.
Shauna.
She's a great lady. Yes, so we had scheduled a 30 minutes interview. It turned out into like a 2 hours discussion. Nearer 3, I think, actually. Yeah. Yes.
She's so great to talk to, and she's so smart and full of so much information.
I actually love her sense of humor and her the way she looks at it. So. I did see you at the Paleo FX 2014 Nothing, but I didn't get a chance to meet you in person. So now is our chance to meet. Can you give us a little background on your paleo life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 4 daughters. My youngest is 6. I have 10-year-old twins, and I have, as of a few days from now, a 13-year-old. And when I had my last one a couple of years later, I was still trying to lose some baby weight. I had gone back to my first love, ballet, and I was doing a little performance, and I felt really uncomfortable getting in a leotard on stage at 4 years old, something like that, and post 4 babies. And so I had a friend who kept talking about this diet she was doing that was grain-free and dairy-free and all these crazy things. And my family had already been gluten-free for a few months because of my daughter's allergies. We just kept seeing this remarkable progress. My daughter, one of my twins, coughed for 4 years straight with asthma. And we did everything medically that we could do. We finally went to a naturopathic doctor. They tested her for food sensitivities, and it showed up as gluten, rice, oats, and dairy, and like 100 other things. So we pulled those out of her diet immediately, and she basically never coughed again. And we're talking about coughing turning blue for 4 years straight, from about the ages of 2 to 6. It was kind of a nightmare. I remember that the year before we went gluten-free, she missed 20-something days of school. And by 2 years of gluten-free, she missed like 3 days of school. So remarkable changes. And so then her twin has sensory processing disorder. And so I thought, well, let's try the gluten-free diet since that's so great for kids on the spectrum. Let's see if this will help her sensory issues. And again, we saw these really remarkable changes. So we just decided to support them and have our whole entire family go gluten-free. But the problem was we were still eating a lot of gluten-free products, and I wasn't able to lose the weight that I wanted to lose, and wasn't for me, I had a lot of health issues going on, and so those were not improving. So my girlfriend who I dance with tells me about this crazy paleo diet, and we talked about it a couple of times, and I just decided I'm doing it. So I just went home and I told my husband, we're throwing all of our grains away. We're going to start this diet tomorrow. And him being the amazing, easygoing, wonderful guy who's used to living with my insanity said, okay. So I did. I found there were no cookbooks at the time. I found Sarah Fragoso's Everyday Paleo website, blog. I printed every recipe off of it that I could. And basically I cooked for 2 weeks straight, morning through night. It was kind of insane, but, we started this diet, and, within 4 months, I think I had lost the 10 or 15 pounds that I wanted to lose. I had been severely anemic. I'd actually almost died the year before in the hospital after a hemorrhage post miscarriage. I basically did die, and then I was revived. So I had not recovered the blood loss in that year. And within 4 months of going paleo, I went in for a full physical. And actually, for the first time in my life, I was not anemic. So it was, for me at that point, it no longer mattered about the weight loss part. It was about, oh my gosh, like I'm not anemic. How is that possible? I had been skinny and anemic with allergies my whole life. I would have upper respiratory infections constantly. I mean, my whole life I'd been really sickly. I had a lot of allergies growing up. And even as an adult, everything my girls would bring home from school, I caught. And the first year I went paleo, I think it was a year and a half before I got a cold. So it was just like unreal how healthy all of a sudden I was, how great I felt. In the process, I had been vegan a couple of years before for a very short time, and I had developed a pretty severe hormone imbalance and estrogen dominance. So the problem was that even a year into being paleo, my hormones were not getting balanced. I was still having some pretty severe issues with that. So you may have heard of Rob Wolf. I ended up writing into his podcast at the time and said, here's all the problems I'm having. And he informed me of the hormone imbalance, the estrogen dominance, and told me like what I could do. And so I did the supplements, and then that basically took care of that hormone imbalance like overnight. So that was great. So yeah, I've been doing this for about 3.5 years now, and basically a few months into it, when I started having the success, is when I started my blog, Primal Balance, because I just sort of at the time wanted to share my experiences and my journey doing this diet and lifestyle. And it's really evolved into a totally different place now. But I just couldn't believe the immediate success. My husband lost about 60 pounds in a year. I mean, it was just one thing after another for us that was positive. So yeah, that's about it.
So how would you describe your previous style of diet before you discovered paleo?
Well, my whole life I ate nothing but junk food. I was one of those teenagers that could pack away a bag of cookies in like 10 minutes and not gain a single pound. I was just so sick. And I found out at like 7 years old that I was allergic to dairy and corn and cigarette smoke, and my parents smoked in the house. I mean, I had all of these really, really bad allergies, and I never really avoided them. I mean, I think, my parents just did the best that they could at the time. There wasn't that kind of information, and there weren't alternatives to dairy back in the early 80s when I was first diagnosed. There just weren't alternatives to anything. So, and nobody really read ingredients on boxes, and we lived off of a lot of processed food. And then by high school, I was working and I was in school, and I started eating a lot of fast food. Then I became a radio DJ a month out of high school when I was 17 years old. And that was a basically, 60-hour work week. So I lived off of fast food, and I was living on my own from about 17 on forever. And so I just never really learned how to cook. I ate really poorly. I got pregnant with my first daughter when I was 23. And I decided that I wanted to have a home birth with a midwife. I knew that there was like this part of me that wanted to do things differently in what seemed like a more natural, connected to how we were made way. So late into the pregnancy, I met the midwife finally, because I had switched from going to an obstetrician to the midwife. And she looked at my diet and she was like, this is not going to work. Like, if you want me to take you on as a client, you have to clean this up. And so that was my first foray, and that was almost 13 years ago. And so that was like my first foray into learning how to be healthy. And I started hanging out with all these other moms who were kind of hippies and really into natural food. I mean, I was actually buying grass-fed beef probably 10 years ago. I was ordering it from another state, actually, because it was hard to find locally. So it was long before the paleo diet made its way on the scene, and people started talking about pastured and grass-fed beef. I was buying it because, I learned back then I was getting Amish butter from a co-op. I didn't even know really necessarily, but that these were, great for you. It just kind of was what people were doing at the time, and it seemed to make sense. I've gone in and out of being a vegetarian. There were times when I thought that that was the healthiest way to be. And it made me incredibly sick every time I did it. Every time I did it, it just destroyed my health. I'm very allergic to soy, which it took me a long time to know that. And so anytime I was vegetarian, I was doing heavy soy, and that's what actually caused my estrogen dominance before. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that probably the last 10 to 13 years, I've been very focused on a healthy diet, but I didn't know necessarily until about 3.5 years ago what a healthy diet actually looked like.
Right. A lot of people on a gluten-free diet seem to confuse gluten-free with basically the fact that you should stop eating junk food, and so they switch from gluten-loaded junk food to gluten-free junk food, and then they wonder why they're not getting any better.
Right.
Of course, they took the gluten out, but they're still eating junk food, so it's not going to help their health in general.
Yeah, and I've always had a really severe sugar addiction, so that's most of my life I've battled sugar. And so no matter what diet I was doing, it wouldn't have, even at times, in my paleo journey, I've had severe sugar addiction. So, I mean, that's just that's a process for me, and that doesn't give me the results that I want when I'm full blown into that.
Right. My opinion, sugar should be labeled as an illegal drug because it's highly addictive, and it makes you very sick. I mean, if you abuse it, it's like everything else is
right.
Now, if you eat a little bit of it, it's okay. I mean, but unfortunately, our society, or at least American society, tends to put sugar in every single food you have. There's sugar, Is, highly
but
addictive,
even people will be addicted. People overdo fruit. I mean, that's in my nutritional therapy work. That's one of the biggest things that I was dealing with. So people go, they go and they do like say a Whole30 or whatever, and then they're just gorging on almonds and fruit. And I'm like, that's what I prefer to do at times, a sugar detox, because I personally have to cut the fruit out completely to be off sugar. I mean, that's just how it works for me. Fruit is just as sugar addiction inducing to me as like a Twinkie. It doesn't matter. So I always caution people to not overdo fruit. You don't need that many servings of it, and as much as everybody thinks that you do. And I do absolutely almost no fruit, and I'm pretty darn healthy. So
yeah, it's the same. It's the same all around. In my opinion, balance is the most important part.
Yes.
A little bit of everything in good quality and in small quantity or reasonable quantities should be the norm. Unfortunately, Americans in general are still being brainwashed into believing that they have to stuff their face in order to feed their body, which is not the right way to go about it.
Absolutely.
I've noticed that actually, which is kind of a nice segue, your website is called Primal Balance. So we find balance in it, which is, obviously something I'm very interested in. And also the primal part is, does that mean that your paleo version is similar to Marxism?
No, it's actually not at all. I just thought paleo balance sounded stupid, so I didn't go with that. I'll tell you, balance is really the most important thing to me, and it's something I've strived for my whole life. I have some pretty unbalanced mood issues, and so it was when I started this journey. It wasn't like I was ever going to put recipes on. I hate to cook. I'm married to a former chef, so I'm really lucky. I get out of most of the cooking. And so my journey was about trying to heal things in my life, heal childhood trauma. It's always kind of been about that for me. And I think I didn't even know how much I was seeking balance when I started the blog 3 years ago. But it's been this amazing journey. I write a lot less about food now and a lot more about self-help kind of stuff. Which is really the way that I'm going. I'm trying to bring something different into the Paleo Primal community that I think is missing. And so there's plenty of people out there talking about food and how you should eat. And I think at this point, I'm very, very balanced in that. I believe that you need to eat whatever template works for you. I don't even call it a paleo diet anymore. I call it a paleo template. So whatever that looks for, I refuse to be